Picture this. You walk into a room, say one word, and everyone has already decided who you are. What could this word be? Is it a derogatory word? An everyday word? Or just something completely random? Well, no matter what you thought of, to me, it doesn't actually matter. Because to me, it isn't the word that I say, but rather the way that it sounds. And this reaction, this instant judgment before meaning even takes shape, is familiar to me. If I wasn't standing here giving this talk today, I'm sure that the same curiosity would arise in every single one of your minds. Not out of malice, not out of rudeness, but out of pure instinct. And it's this kind of curiosity that arises when something doesn't neatly fit into expectations. When someone tries to place a story into a voice. When someone hears a noise and tries to reverse engineer a life from it. And to be honest, this isn't inherently bad. It's human. It's how our brains try to make sense of the unfamiliar. So let me address the elephant in the room. I wasn't born in the United States, but I've lived here ever since I was 1. This is the only childhood I've ever known. I've grown up in the same neighborhoods, eaten at the same restaurants, and even shopped at the same grocery stores as all those around me. I rode my tricycle down the same wide suburban boulevards and struggled with pasta that was far longer than it ever had to be. In every way that mattered, my life looked exactly like those around me. And yet, people always noticed something different. They asked me, "Where are you from? How long have you been here? What accounts for the difference between the person they see standing in front of them and the voice that they hear?" My accent. And for as long as I could remember, this difference has introduced me before I could even finish a sentence. But what I've come to realize is that it's less about the content itself and more about the intention. This curiosity isn't about drawing lines. It's about trying to understand without assuming. So why do I sound the way I do? To this, I don't have a definitive answer, only context. My journey with language didn't begin in English. It began in Tamil, the language I still speak with my parents today. But these early beginnings never fully disappeared. Even though I even think in English now, this early beginning layered itself into the way that my voice carries my story till this day. I landed in Seattle-Tacoma Airport 15 years ago, and ever since then, I've always lived in the United States. Throughout my time in Seattle, and even during elementary school, it never even once registered to me that I had an accent. But it all changed in 4th grade. I transferred schools. I walked into that classroom, bright-eyed, ready to make new friends. But this time, something was different. Kids start labeling as early as 2 years old. But around 4th grade, just brushing those double digits, that labeling gets sharper. They start placing people into boxes with alarming efficiency. So I was placed into the box for the thing most obvious about me, my accent. New York First Lady and activist Shirlane McRae once said, "Labels place people in boxes, and those boxes are shaped like coffins." I had this beautiful coffin placed right in front of me. The funeral, it was for all those high hopes that had died from a long fall, for that short-lived dream that I could be that new kid I'd imagined myself being. But I was only a 4th grader. To me, a coffin was just an oddly shaped box. So I stepped right over it and put my name in for student council elections. And I think you guys can all guess what happened. I lost, and I lost pretty badly. But what hurt more than losing was the confusion. So I asked people, why? And I got the same response over and over again. My accent. Not my ideas, not my posters, not my ability to do the job, but rather my accent. But let's move away from me for a moment, because this isn't just my story. English isn't everyone's first language. In 2021, Balbo magazine reported that out of the 1.25 billion English speakers around the world, only 27% were native speakers. Most people who speak English speak it with an accent. And yet, certain accents are still perceived as less credible. And this is exactly what John Slokis and colleagues examined in their study. when participants were presented with sales pitches from both accented and non-accented speakers, they consistently ranked the native sales pitches to be considerably more persuasive and trustworthy. But another study by Beth Livingston and colleagues found something even more alarming. Even people who believed they were not prejudiced towards accents still had a harder time understanding and reacted less favorably in a subconscious manner to accented speakers. This phenomenon, it has a name, accentism. And its consequences, they're real. Studies from the University of Ghent, the American Psychological Association, and the University of Chicago have shown that accented speakers are often regarded as less intelligent, of a lower social class, and in the workplace, these same speakers experience more role conflict and less job satisfaction. But if the evidence is so overwhelming, why does this bias even exist? To understand this, we must delve into what language really is. Communication exists throughout our planet. Birds communicate through song, bees dance to convey direction and distance. Whales send messages miles underwater. But human language is different. It's different because of its complexity. The timbre of dialect, the rhythm of tone, the harmony of emotion, the pitch of accent, but most importantly, the melody of communication. Every sentence is a song, and each accent is simply a rearrangement of those same exact notes. But instead of appreciating the variation, instead of enjoying the music, we treat these like horns of war. And these biases, they don't stop at accents. Recently, I took the Pew Political Typology quiz. Most of the questions were predictable, until I came across one that genuinely stopped me. How much, if at all, would it bother you to hear a language other than English being spoken in a public place? I froze. Why would anyone be bothered by that? At first, I dismissed this. I told myself it must only apply to fringe groups. But a quick Google search proved me wrong. More than 35% of Americans, and in some political groups, more than 50% said yes. To me, multilingualism has always been a skill, an asset. The ability to communicate to multiple populations through wildly different forms of communication is incredible. But yet, to some, it's seen as an offense. A 2013 study by the University of London helped show why. It found that multilingual, extroverted, ethnically exposed, and more emotionally stable people were significantly less bothered by accents than those who were not. And suddenly, something clicked. When someone hears an accent and is bothered by it, the issue lies not with the speaker, but with the listener. The right people would listen. And I'm not describing some utopian fantasy. Some societies already live in this reality. I witnessed this firsthand when I visited Singapore. Every sign was emblazoned in 4 different languages: English, Malay, Tamil, and Mandarin. Singapore didn't hide its languages, it celebrated them. Chinatowns stood beside Malay street markets, Hindu temples, and colonial buildings. Singapore didn't force its cultures into coffins. It created a melting pot where everyone would retain its own unique identity while strengthening the whole. And back in my own life, I kept stepping over coffins people placed in front of me. I ran for student council elections again, and again, and again. By 8th grade, I was practically a perennial candidate. But slowly, those boxes, they started breaking down. People stopped hearing my accent first, and rather my ideas. Some people never learned to look past the sound of my voice, but that was their loss. The right people listened, and they were enough to elect me as student council president. And I'll be honest, when I hear accent, I still notice it, but now I know exactly what I'm hearing. Not a personality, not a limitation, not a predetermined story, just a voice. And everything that comes after is what matters. Thank you.